Greetings and welcome, all you weary travelers and armchair philosophers. My name is Dan with a K, and the K is silent. I'm thrilled as usual for you to join us. We, all of us, are here to nerd out, to laugh, think a little bit, and just have a good time. On this channel, we will be discussing all things supernatural, paranormal, science fiction, and fantasy. You'll be hearing from my special guests who I invite on the show to share their answers to the topics I provide, and I think you're going to find them quite entertaining and maybe just a little bit informative. At the end of every episode, I invite you to write in your own answer so that you can participate as well. So now, I invite you to relax, grab a snack, unclench your jaw, and put up your feet and get ready to open your mind and test your beliefs as we explore high strangeness and the mysteries of the universe. Hi, Signy. So nice of you to join us. I don't think my audience has met you before. Would you mind giving us a brief introduction?
Hello, I'm Sigrid. You may call me Signy. When I say my name in full, I am often asked what it means. It means, in English, beautiful victory. I am from Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. I am a tour guide and spend my off-season in the UK.
Wow. As you and I were talking earlier, you must get a lot of questions about the native folklore. And I mean, it sounds like the traditions and stories are really deep rooted with the peoples of Iceland.
Yes, we believe in the beauty of our nature, and that part of respecting the land is understanding or interpreting how we must respect everyone, and especially the real native people of Iceland, the Huldufólk.
Ah, yes. And this is what brings us to today's topic. I'm so excited to have you here, Signy. And I want to ask you to give us, I mean, I know you have a lot of accounts that we've talked about off camera, but maybe give us one of your favorites with the hidden people, or Huldufólk, as you say, if you would, please.
Very good, your pronunciation is good. The Huldufólk, I tell people, is most often associated with the elves of the land. They are said to, and I believe, have the ability to move in and out of sight through what we now understand is parallel dimensions. Though I do give tours to very old dwellings said to be inhabited by these elves, as you would refer to them, they also live inside and underneath great rock formations, hidden from all sight. But you must keep in mind that they can will themselves into sight and back to invisible very quicker than you can blink your eye.
Um, uh, can you describe them, please?
Of course, they are a little bit taller than humans, more slight, skinny, I tell people. Some have even pointy ears that you can sometimes see through their blonde hair and light eyes.
Oh my gosh, that's like the Lord of the Rings, right? The elves?
Ha! Yes, we believe that the author based much of his descriptions from our ancient folklore.
So let's get back to your story. You were telling us, or you were going to tell us, about a time that you encountered an elf?
Yes, I will tell you a very memorable encounter, and it was when I was a very young and visiting my grandmother who lived in a small village. She went out of her house to go gather things from her neighbor. Her neighbor lived half a kilometer away. She walked over to there and asked me to look after her sheep. She had 5 at the time. Before she left, she told me to herd them into their pen and to feed them grain. It was not typical to feed them, as they can graze all they want but needed extra attention because of the cold season. So I was happy to do what she asked. I was a little girl, so they were all bigger than me, heavier, and sometimes one of them could be quite stubborn. I remember trying to herd them, but for some reason, this day they would not listen to me. Then I thought if I put the grain inside the pen, they would want to go and wouldn't have to fight them. So I went around the shed to gather some pails of grain, and in the time it took me to come back, maybe a minute or two, all of the sheep were in their pen, and the pen was closed and latched behind them. Yes, and my grandmother was still not home. I dropped the grain for them and walked around the house to see who else would be there. And when I got to the corner, I saw, very briefly, a beautiful Hudefolk. She looked young and had the most beautiful long hair. She smiled at me. I felt only love and joy from her, so I wanted to run to her, but she was already gone before I could even take a step.
What was she wearing?
She had a beautiful white flowing gown and some kind of white headband or scarf, so I could see all of her face. She was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen.
I'm in total awe right now.
Yes, as one would be. My grandmother came home a bit later and was happy to see that I had started the kettle and was preparing a meal. She asked if the one sheep gave me trouble. I smiled and told her what happened. We ate, and afterward she told me that I was very lucky and that I was looked after and adored by the Hurlafolk. She then had me fill a bowl of stew and cup of schnapps and leave it outside for her to honor and thank her for her presence.
Wow, so your story didn't even seem out of the ordinary to your own grandmother. She didn't think you were, she believed you right away. That's so telling of your beautiful, rich culture. I'm envious.
Don't be. Instead, plan a trip to Iceland. I will be your guide.
Deal! And Signy, we have so much to discuss. I really look forward to seeing you soon, okay? Don David, what's cooking, my friend?
What's cooking? What's cooking is the chicken in the pot.
How are you?
I'm doing all right, Dan. Still above ground.
Hey, real quick, are you boiling a chicken? Or were you being funny?
Aye, what's the matter with chicken?
Nothing, I love chicken. I can't say I boil it too often.
And I can't say that I've seen the Pope naked. What of it, man?
Fair enough. Hey, Don David, today I want to ask you about spirits in the forests. Have you seen any? Do you believe in this kind of folklore?
Aye, you mean fairies and sprites and the like. Not only do I know about them, I've seen them myself.
That's fantastic. Tell us your story.
You remember how I told you about growing up in the country with my little brother? And how I told you about the visitors in the craft? The blondes with the long hair and blue eyes? Well, this is before that. This is, I'd say, a few years before that. Me and my brother were even smaller at the time. We were at our cousin's house. His family lived not too far and we were all there celebrating something. I don't know. Doesn't matter. All of us boys were doing what boys do and found ourselves playing around the beck nearby.
Sorry, the beck?
You know, the Bourne, the stream. So, we start following the water upstream. We were playing games, who knows? All I know is after a while, it seemed like we were pretty far from anything. We actually wandered away and found ourselves in a very thick forest. I mean, old trees with very tall branches, but covered the sky, really.
Okay, so remind me, who all is there and how long had you been away from the house?
Right, it was me and my brother, of course, and my two cousins and one of their mates. My cousin Colin was the oldest, so we relied on him to get us around. And by now, we were, I couldn't say, but far enough away that some of us started getting hungry. Keeping in mind, us lads were all left alone all day. And with all the drinking and going on back at the house, I don't even think anyone noticed how long we'd been gone, or even where. Well, I remember Colin playing a trick on us though, the bastard. It frightened me brother and I, and I'll admit, it was not very nice. He said we should play hide and seek, so he said he'd come find us. But the forest was thick, shrubs and roots and burrows and the like. It wasn't hard to find a good spot. So, me and brother decided to stick together, and we hid under a knobby tree with great roots. We were hush and couldn't hear any of the other lads. We waited and waited and waited until finally I stood up and I looked around. It seemed like too much time had passed and we couldn't hear or see nobody. I finally called out to him, nothing. And again I cried out, show yourselves. We give up. We're here and we give up.
Wow, remind me again, how old were you?
Oh, we were probably, let's see, I was 7, I think, and me brother was 5 at the time. Colin decided to wind us up, and he and the rest of them left us for dead in the forest. My brother started crying. I told him to calm down, but to be honest, it was getting dark and cold, and being so little and not knowing where we were, I didn't really have any ideas on which way to go. I'm not gonna lie, Dan. I started to panic. I sort of figured if we could find the brook, we could follow it back and then maybe remember which way to go from there. But the fear in the dark and cold was already taking over. I mean, if you've ever been in a forest like that, everything starts to look the same. You don't have to believe me, but this is all true, and my brother can tell you the same. From within a hollow in the big, knobby tree came out a small, greenish yellowish light. It was an orb, tiny, like you could wrap your hand around it. My brother saw it first, which was why he was so quiet, and it came out of the hollow and danced around his face. It was
A fairy.
and to anyone listening who thinks I'm mad or daft, I can tell you that I know what you're thinking and you're wrong. It was not a firefly. I know what those are, and I've seen them plenty in my life. No, this fairy, I don't know what it was saying, but my brother was talking to it, like he was having a conversation, plain as day.
Did he tell you what they were talking about?
No, and to this day, even after the craft incident, he's mum. But he did say to me that the ferry would show us the way back, and it did. It was unlike anything I've seen before or since. It was able to dim itself, but mainly it kept bright, and I mean, more than you'd expect. We were able to actually see where to put our feet on the ground, and this little sprite was keeping pace just in front of my brother's face.
So this fairy brought you all the way back to the house?
Aye, it took us within sight of it, then just zipped away back to the forest. We didn't tell anyone how we got back, and really no one was looking for us. Colin had a good laugh, of course, when he saw us, but my brother got him good.
Oh, yeah?
Me brother ran up to him whilst he was having a laugh and punted him right in the family jewels. I've never seen that kind of power in me brother, not even when we play football. That Colin doubled over and chucked all over himself.
Wow, what a great story. Man, I have so many questions, but I know I'll be seeing you in the near future. Wow, thanks again, Don David. Hi there, Paul. Good to see you. I know you're new to my audience. Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Hello. I'm Paul. I'm from Chester, England. I'm a simple man. I run a small but profitable cheese shop. And besides having 3 beautiful children with my lovely wife, I like to visit the forests and country to search for treasure with my metal detector.
Oh? What's something you found that you could tell us about?
Well, I found something quite significant, and it was a satchel of old Roman coins.
Whoa, that's amazing. Did you keep them?
As a matter of fact, I sold them at auction, and that's how I bought my shop.
Oh my gosh. You found some ancient coins and were able to open your own cheese shop? That's quite the find.
That's the thing, isn't it? You've got to go where there would have been some history, old places, old towns. If you're serious, you've got to make an effort to go to these places and then hit it multiple times. That's the key. You've got to be thorough.
Well said, Paul. And speaking of history and old places, this is the perfect segue into me asking you about today's topic. Seeing as how you're in a country and a region rich with history and folklore, I'd like to ask you, Paul, do you believe in spirits in the forest?
Now, Dan, I've got a good one for you. And to answer your question, yes, I do believe in beings in the forest. I've heard too many stories. I wish that I could say I have one of my own, but I do have one that's close to me heart. My granddad has been telling us this story, the same story, since I can remember, and the details never change. Now, My granddad was in the war and lived a good life, good as any, but he tells us that he never would have met me grandmom if it hadn't been for the Lady of the Lake that saved him. He says when he was a young man just before the war, he was swimming with his mates at this lake. It's a known place, you can go there now, and as a matter of fact, I've made a point to visit at least once a year just to see if I could be blessed with such an encounter as he had. Right, so he says he was swimming when all of a sudden he found himself out too far from the shore. He was getting tired. His mates were all on shore and nobody suspected anything, as they were all doing whatever else they were doing, just bounding about and having a good time. Nobody noticed him starting to sink. My granddad is an honorable man, so I never questioned him if it were true or not. I've just accepted it as he has, and tell it as he did. He says that he sank to the bottom of the lake. He describes it as dark and cold. He says a blue light came toward him, and the light took the shape of a lady.
Oh my gosh.
The lady, who he later said had long flowing hair and skin as white as snow, took him, embraced him and brought him to the top. Not only that, but she brought him to the shore. She set him down and swam away.
Oh, wow. Did his friends see this? What did they do?
Only one of them confirmed that he suddenly appeared on the shore, and thank God, because my granddad was unconscious. They rushed him to the local hospital, which thankfully was not far at all. When he woke up, he was greeted by the nurse, who's now my grandmom.
That is so sweet.
There's a bit more. Later, when he got home and asked his mates what happened that day, they say he did mysteriously appear on the shore and that he was completely out. They thought he might be dead. One of them said in his hand he was clutching what looked like a small handful of yellowy, blonde-looking reeds from the bottom of the lake. At least that's how they put it. They figured he drowned and was grasping or grabbing for anything to pull himself up. Later, his mate did say that it looked more like corn silk. That's when my granddad said all the memories flooded back.
So, what do you think? Fascinating, right? Did you notice any similarities with the ages that were described? Do you think that these spirits choose who is worthy to help? Or are they bound by their own altruistic ethics? Is it wrong to dismiss these stories and others as simple fairy tales? I mean, stories of fantastic events are written to pretty much all of the world's mythologies, both ancient and modern. I mean, personally, I find it comforting to believe that there are mysterious forces guiding and protecting me. What say you? Leave a brief description of your own story of encountering good spirits in nature in the comments down below. Hey, and before you go, please like and subscribe to my channel. Share it with anyone and everyone you think would like it too. It would mean the world to me. I'm Dan with a K, and it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you with me today. Until next time, stay frosty and everything will be okay.